He wants to know what I'm working on now in my writings. Well, you know about Hope for a Better World. That book just came out, and I absolutely urge you to buy the thing. Yes, at discount prices, but do get it. It's really a very good book, and I'm quite enthusiastic about it. It was a hard book to write at first. What happened was that I read this book called Books That Changed the World, and it had the contributions made by Plato and Machiavelli and Darwin and Adam Smith and Freud and Marx and Malthus and Hegel. Well, I didn't mention Hegel, but those kinds of people. And it was a pain to go through, frankly. I didn't approve of any of them. Plato himself, you'd think, well, at least you approved of him. It was such a ridiculous thing he gave. The idea of a community based on things that are totally unrealistic. Everybody's house has to be open to everybody else. You can just wander in and out as you like. Well, gosh sakes, you want some little privacy. You couldn't have any husband or wife. You just sort of had to copulate whoever turned up, and your children of that so-called marriage couldn't be yours. You couldn't know that they were your children. They couldn't know that you were their parents. All were children of the state, and so it went on. It was a ridiculous thing. The only thing that it did have was aspiration toward human perfection. But the ridiculous side of this was that he accepted that certain people are born leaders. And so you had to train them differently from those who are not born leaders. Some people are born supporters for those leaders. You had to train them from the beginning to be supporters for these leaders. Now you tell me, can you look at any little blob in a cradle and say, here's a leader? It's sort of ridiculous, isn't it? Forgive me, your dear mothers, I didn't mean to. Thank you. Thank you. The point is you can't tell what people are like until they've had a chance to show their stuff. It doesn't always come out until they're pretty well on in life. So to get them trained from early in life this way, unrealistic. The whole thing, the whole plan was ridiculous. And, however, he gave, what happened to him was that the king of Syracuse invited him to practice, put his system into practice among his people. He did, and the experiment was a fiasco. Well, that's all you need. Find if the thing works or not. Not one of those people actually found out whether it worked. They sometimes worked in a limited area, not much. As I read that book, I saw that these people, brilliant though they were, they didn't ask that simple, basic question, does it work? How does it work? Why does it work? And what does it mean when it does work? Does it give us what we really want? Does it take us anywhere? Not one of them. And so this book became the springboard for the realization of how very important communities are. Because social experiments conducted on a national scale, you can't expect millions of people all to follow some kook's theory. Try it on a small level. Communities are the only way to do it. And again, with communities, don't corral them like wild horses. Get them into a corral and break them for riding. Let them be themselves. Let those come who want to come. I said new ideas don't require government decision. After Orville and Wilbur Wright put a plane in the air, it didn't take Washington to say, decide now we shall fly. People saw it, they liked it. About 25 years later, Lindbergh crossed the Atlantic in a plane, the Spirit of St. Louis, and bit by bit people got into it. Now most people wouldn't even think of going to New York except by plane. It's just happened because people see it, they like it, they follow it. Well, why can't you do that with communities? You don't need a big social experiment. You don't need like what Flynn and other people have talked about, these community communes where people all have to do the same thing. Not at all. Let people do what we've done. Come together if they like to. If they don't like it, leave. Follow to the extent that they want to. I went a great deal into the subject of leadership in this book and showed how leadership is important. But it's got to be a supportive kind of leadership. It's got to set the example. It has to be concerned for people. It cannot be the kind of leadership that considers it important to be a leader. It's what you're doing that matters. But somebody needs to coordinate the activity. And the kind of leadership we've had is to try to make decisions as much as possible from a grassroots level. Well, this is very important. Get other people in the act. People wouldn't come to a place like Ananda if they weren't unusually independent in their thinking. Most of you have had to buck friends, relatives, others who have tried to talk you out of it. You thought for yourselves and you said, this is a good thing, I want to try it. If it doesn't work, fine, you can tell me then that it didn't work, but I think I should like to try it. Well, this is what we need all over the world. And you know, an interesting thing in this book, I haven't even named Ananda. I didn't want the readers to get the slightest thought that I was proselytizing. I'm proselytizing to an idea, not to a place. I said, we don't need just one kind of community. We need many. Supposing a big industry decided to create a village, have its own shops, offer people homes, offer them insurance and things, take care of them, make it a big family. How much more wonderful that would be. Japan has set that kind of example. We just can take it a step further. But how wonderful it would be if industry thought that way, if people everywhere thought that way. I do ask the question, would it be possible without God? Would it be possible to create a viable community without spiritual principles? I said that I have to answer that. As far as I know, I don't think so. Try it, but I don't think it'll work. You need some high ideal to work toward. I do think Ananda is the best thing going and may end up being the only thing going, but that's not for trying to force people into it. If people like it and can't do it on their own, and many people have left Ananda to start communities, none of them have succeeded. If they find that we've got a good thing and they can take it, fine, but not something centralized here with a big mother center. No, let them be spontaneous. That's how life grows. You know, parents have a child. They think this is our child. Really what they've done is invite a completely unknown guest. That's all he is. Yeah, there's some compatibility, or he wouldn't have chosen that family. But I always remember that story that Asha told of somebody in Palo Alto who had a child who was very a little difficult to discipline. And she scolded him one time, and he tore out of the room and slammed the door. He was 5 years old. Came back and opened the door again. He said, and you weren't my first choice either. She asked him, well, who was your first choice? He said, oh, some woman in the Philippines, but she was already taken. But you know, you are drawn to parents according to your some similarity of vibrations. But Master said, because after all, the opportunities for spiritual souls to reincarnate aren't that many. I mean, how many people are parents in Ananda? Not as many as you might expect. I can count many people who have no children. And if they have children, it's probably not the usual gaggle of 10 or 15 or whatever. Maybe 1 or 2. It's not so easy to find somebody who is spiritual who wants to have children. It's great if you can have children and if they are spiritual, but it is a special thing. Master said sometimes a saint will be born into a criminal home because the father, perhaps, although a criminal, shares a common liking for peace, calmness, for not being disturbed in the home, that kind of thing. Maybe that one strong quality is all that draws two souls, or three souls in this case, together. But we think we build these homes. They aren't really our own. We're here just as visitors. They're here as visitors, and so it goes on. Where did I get started on that one, Jyoti?
Hope for a better world.
Yeah. I said that it would be wonderful for these communities to produce children. I always say if you can't convert them, breed them. But we're going to have many, many different types. There's so many different types who are born. Not many people choose to come to Ananda. Not many people choose to come to a spiritual community. Not many people choose to come to a community. Don't worry about it. Mind you, a few people setting an example can have an impact on millions, literally. You know that people come here from all over the world because we're here, just a small few. But because we're doing something meaningful, they recognize it, and even if they don't take it to themselves as something they want to do, it does help their lives. I gave a talk at a morning breakfast club in Laguna Beach, I think, or somewhere down there. And afterwards, this man, after I'd given my talk, this man came up and grabbed the mic, and he said, I just have to tell you all something. He said, my business is helping failing businesses to become solvent, and I have a lot of people that I counsel in business affairs. And there's a book I've given them, hundreds of copies for many years to these people as something that would really help them, The Art of Supportive Leadership. And he said, today I discover that the author of this book is this man. So he was very, very excited about it. But many businesses have been helped, not just by that book, but by things that we're doing. You know, Pat Kirby, many of you have met her. She wants to come and live here. But I first found out about her because she had been given an assignment to write a treatise, an essay or whatever they called it, a paper on education for life. And she wrote me an email. I didn't know her. I was going to say from Adam. I guess you'd have to say from Eve. Anyway, I didn't know her. And she said, you know, the expression education for life is very common. I didn't know it. I thought I'd coined it, or Master coined it. But it's very common. Many people have had it. She said that her paper, she had to do research on schools following this kind of principle, going back to the Chinese, ancient Indians, Egyptians, Greek, Roman, all up to the modern times. And she studied Waldorf and Montessori and other modern groups. She's done a lot of research. That's her thing, I think, is doing research. She said the best book I've ever found was called Education for Life by J. Donald Walters. And she wrote very enthusiastic about this book. And the last part of her paper was just long quotations from my book. Well, you see that this book has had an impact through her on many other people. But this is how it happens. One person gets converted, reaches hundreds. And so what Ananda is doing, it's just going to reach out further and further for the simple reason you don't have to have a Stalin there saying that we'll kill you if you don't do it. Just offer it, and if people like it, they'll do it. If they don't, well, you've had a good time. What does it matter? You've enjoyed it, but you've done something valid, and not very many people do anything valid in their lives. And so they begin to say, well, that's for me. And so bit by bit, this idea is going to spread, but it'll spread in little pockets like that. And the impact of it is going to be far greater than the numbers involved. This little community has much more impact than the rest of Nevada County, for example. In fact, I think 100 years from now, people are going to look back and say that was one of the most, if not the most important thing going on back then. I believe it. And anyway, with that belief, I've put a lot of energy into this book. So that's the book, and I just finished it. It just came out in its pretty well final form. You never know, I mean. But I think it's pretty final. Main thing we need is testimonials for it, and we've got fabulous testimonials. University in Rome, university in Naples, university in Bucharest, of all places. People in colleges around this country. You read them, you'll be amazed. And then the NAPRA gave a review that was really wonderful. So all of this is what that book's about. Well, then, the thing I'm working on, Ishak, was what I talked about when I talked about Master's book, Science of Religion. I'm changing the title to God is for Everyone, because that's much more what it's really about. And I'm working on that. I've nearly finished it. I hope to have it very soon. So really, I didn't come here to work at all. I came here to be with you all. And that's been my work. I've come here to sort of energize everything and help push toward fulfillment. This great dream that Master had that he kept talking about. When Daya said, frankly, I'm not interested, I thought, you just don't know his teachings. Every Sunday speech he gave, sermon, he talked about communities. If you'd lived then, you'd just be amazed. At that garden party in Beverly Hills, there must have been 200 or 300 or 400 people. The place was packed. It was some wealthy woman in Beverly Hills who invited him to conduct a garden party, have some of us boys do the postures, and then she wanted him to talk. Well, I can imagine what he must have expected her to say, the sort of thing you'd say at a garden party, thanking your hostess and thanking the guests, thanking these boys who have done these beautiful postures so nicely, thanking the people who made the lemonade, thanking God for giving us the Southern California sunshine, and just a few little things, and patting a few people on the head, and thank you all, and leaving. Wow, I never heard such a lecture in my life. It was so powerful. I want thousands of youths to go north, south, east, west, everywhere, to spread this idea of colonies to everywhere, all over the world. And I never heard him talk so powerfully. And I vowed I would devote my life to fulfilling that dream. There must have been several hundred people there. I was the only one who took those words to heart, who made something of them. Others, one or two, said, yeah, it's a nice idea. Others just went home and forgot all about it. The hostess didn't invite him back. I'm not surprised. I mean, would you? But the thing is, not many people listened. Really, no one of those days. I'm the only disciple. Mr. Black wanted to, but I knew he'd never succeed. He was a rich man wanting to do it for other people. You can't do it that way. They've got to do it. Fortunately, I didn't have any money, so I had to bring other people into it. But I didn't ask anybody for help. I just did it myself. Other people saw it, decided they liked it, they pitched in, and bit by bit, it's come up. Now we can say it with quite a lot of pride. It's proved to be a wonderful thing. So I'm working on this book now, The Science of Religion, which I'm calling God is for Everyone. As I say, I'm mostly finished with it, but I really wanted to come back to give talks every weekend in this expanding light, go to our communities. I told them in Italy I'm not going to do any writing. here I find I am doing it, but so you can't get a leopard to change its spots. But that's my main purpose in being here, is not the writing, but the satsang. So that's why I'm really happy about this gathering.